and welcome to this edition of Focus, a program produced by the Department of Disaster Management, DDM. I am your host, Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the DDM. In this edition, we will focus on the important roles geography and geographic information systems, GIS, play in disaster management. The month of November is designated for raising awareness and highlighting the importance of geography and GIS. As a matter of fact, Geography Awareness Week is celebrated during the third week of November annually, since it was established by presidential proclamation more than 25 years ago. This year's observance, from November 13 to the 19, provides an opportunity for all of us to focus on the importance of geography. Added to this celebration is Geographic Information Systems GIS Day on November 16, which encourages all of us to discover the world through GIS. But how is geography used in disaster management? What exactly is GIS, and how does it impact disaster management? Stay tuned to Focus for answers to those questions after this break.
I heard about storm surge on TV, but didn't really know what it was.
I found the wipe test out. The sea swept away everything. All gone.
The waves were higher than the house.
The devastating force of a storm surge is awesome. Wave after wave. Tons and tons of water lashing and smashing down all before it. Storm surge. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. If you live alongside the seaside, sooner or later, storm surge, the big waves and high seas caused by a storm, will threaten your property. Plan for it. Build for it. Maybe don't build there at all. Find out more about storm surge and other hazards at your local disaster office.
Welcome back to the program as we continue to highlight the link between geography, geographic information systems, GIS, and disaster management. Let's first speak about geography. Simply put, geography is the study of the physical features of the Earth and its environment, landscape, people, and places. For emergency and disaster managers, the ability to determine the extent of damage a particular hazard is likely to have on people and places is rooted in the foundation of geography, which calls for an understanding of the interaction and linkages between human activity and the natural environment. In other words, your geographic location and the types of human activity that takes place in your area, such as certain types of development and environmental practices, can have a direct impact on the extent of damage natural or man-made hazards are likely to cause. Geography is also an important aspect of other fields that deal with development and the environment. Let's look at the Survey Department as an example. The Survey Department is mandated to deliver accurate, high-quality geographic and mapping services, products, and information in line with the development needs of the BVI. Brandon James Chalwell from the Survey Department sums up the importance of geography as a whole and its application to development.
Geography is such an important and powerful area of study, and I will explain to you why. Geography is a scientific field devoted to the study of the environment and ecosystems, the Earth's surface, human society, and the oceans. Geography can be placed into two categories: human geography and physical geography. Human geography is the study of spatial aspects of humans and their interaction with the Earth's surface. Physical geography studies the soil, weather patterns, landforms, vegetation, and water. In this technologically advanced world that we live in, we are able to understand more about our environment from the geographical information that is ready for us to explore. Using the different tools and techniques, the work of a geographer through online mapping and various geographic information systems has helped us to understand what is happening in the world today. Nonetheless, as a land surveyor, I will speak to geomatics, which is well related to the science of geography. First and foremost, I chose to become a land surveyor because I was introduced by it by my dad, who is a land surveyor, and I truly enjoy it. Second, it gives me the best of both worlds, office and in the field. Third, it allows me to be creative. Geomatics, which is also known as land surveying, is the science that speaks to the collection, interpretation, manipulation, and also the production of spatial information above and below the surface of the earth. Land surveyors use different techniques such as remote sensing, photogrammetry, and mapping techniques such as topographic, cadastral, engineering, and hydrographic, just to name a few, to collect spatial data, which is often used to make maps. Spatial data and maps produced by land surveyors are used to assist the work of geographers. Before the geographer starts his or her project, the first step, just like the land surveyor, is to gather data. This data is mainly information that already exists from the land surveyor, such as diagrams and maps showing slopes, topography, owner, and other relative information. This information then is used to determine if what is intended by the geographer for the subject area can actually work, and if it can't, what measures are necessary to ensure that it can work. Land surveying is one of the driving forces behind planning. Before development can take place, mapping techniques such as those mentioned above can be done to acquire information to determine the shape, size, ownership, and slope of the land. Collecting spatial information using topographic and photogrammetric techniques gives us an idea of the natural and man-made features that are present on the land. Surveyors can use this information to generate contours, which are important to any topographic map. Contour lines are imaginary lines that join points of the same elevation, usually referenced to mean sea level. With this topographic information, steps can be taken within the planning process to determine how to manipulate the surface of the land to begin development. Another important step in planning is to determine property boundaries. Surveyors use different instruments such as total station and global positional receivers to determine the set position of boundaries on the surface of the earth. Using documents such as property titles and cadastral survey plans, land surveyors are able to demarcate property boundaries for subdividing land. These boundaries determine the area in which development can take place. Bearing in mind what I previously mentioned, and with regards to geography, it is important towards development. The land surveyor goes in first and last, as he has to conduct an as-built survey of what was developed.
That was Brandon James Chalwell, land surveyor at the Survey Department. Stay tuned to Focus. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. But this time, we'll highlight Geographic Information Systems, GIS, and how this powerful tool is changing how we plan and make decisions.
A little rainfall and you come home and your house gone. Gone. I never thought this would happen to me.
Told them it could happen, but they never paid me no mind. Never.
The whole road gone down the hill.
Landslides happen all the time. Sometimes little, sometimes big. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can do something about landslides. Trees and shrubs on hillsides bind earth together and help stop landslides. Preserve vegetation. Stop landslides. Find out more at your local disaster office. A message from your National Disaster Office.
I'm now here with the chair of the National GIS Committee, Troy Dawson, along with Earl Forbes, who is also a member of that committee, and they will both help us to understand GIS technology. First of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure having you both here. Now, when some people hear about GIS, they automatically think about maps, but I know GIS is more than that. So explain what exactly is GIS?
Actually, I'll commend you because you're one of the first persons to say that to me, because when we had, most times in the BVI, when you had GIS, they think about government information services. For some reason, we're trying to change that up a bit, but now I realize now that it's been a bit more out there and people are getting more aware. So yes, most times when they get off the government information services bit, they think about the GIS is the mapping portal that they use in town planning or survey department. But it's a bit more. It has different components to it. It has, when you think about GIS, you're looking at capturing data, you're looking at visualizing data, and then you're actually looking at analyzing the data. So it goes a bit further than just mapping.
Right, and it is a computer-based system.
Yes, GIS actually that is actually the acronym for Geographic Information Systems. So it is computer-based, which kind of gives you a overall view of everything from a TV, any type of monitors that you may have.
So why is this system so important for communities and countries as a whole?
Well, it's very, very important. That's a very, very important question, because as you look at it, GIS practically works in everyday life. Everything you do with a spatial component has something to do with it. So more and more, as you see, even if you watch the US news, they're using it for their mapping programs to map disasters, areas of conflict and stuff like that. But to make it more local, in the BVI, you're seeing things like disaster management. It's playing a very heavy role in disaster management. Conservation as well, with our oceans or reefs, and monitoring on beach, watching the beach profiles and the wildlife and all of that sort of stuff. So that is being used to monitor that. Whereas you can then see the different trends over the years. Also, we have a number of different departments are using it as well to help their communities work better. One of them is a town country planning as well that uses it to do their land use study, whereas when they're making decisions that they can use it to help better the community. The water and sewage department, they're using it as well to track where their applications are. So it's a number of different departments that uses the GIS, and it plays out in the impact that it plays on the community.
Right, and you introduced the term there, spatial. What is that?
Spatial is basically anything with a location that is on the face of the earth. Okay. So you have your roads, your buildings, telephone lines, people, vehicles. It's all encompassing. Anything that's on the face of the earth could have a spatial location. Great.
Now, it's my understanding that to produce useful information from the GIS system, there must be sufficient data to enter into the program. Are you finding that organizations and departments here are collecting enough data to allow for the potential use of GIS?
Funny you should ask. One of the main things for data, as Owen mentioned, is a spatial component, right? I'm finding that most departments have an old manual system in place. You have these set of registers that are not compatible with the GIS as yet. These are very useful information. These can be used for different types of analysis all through the globe, right? But I believe we're at a point where these departments are transitioning. For instance, we have land registry department. They are now trying to get digital. They're moving from this old manual system, and in the future, I expect to have them, tied to the GIS with all of these registers. We need to get to the point where we don't have to run to land registry to get these copies of the deeds, and we can have these things online. So the GIS is, it's all encompassing. So it has different applications, but as mentioned before, we have to get most of these departments that are on the manual systems up to digital.
Right, so the issue is not necessarily with the collecting of data. Departments and organizations are doing that, but it's just how they're storing that data.
It's the storage of that data, yes. Okay. They have just about everything you can think about, but they may have them probably in an Excel database, those kind of older databases. But now we're trying to get them, upgraded to probably SQL or some kind of database that can be useful to the GIS.
Okay, and how is the GIS system used in the BVI, and how does it impact decision makers? I know you would have mentioned some of the departments which already use the system, but how does it impact on making decisions?
Yes, well, as Mr. Dawson mentioned as well, that the GIS is used by a number of different departments, and all of them are using it to impact tremendously on decisions that they're making. One of the departments that we know uses that quite regularly, that is also part of the NGIS, is National Parks. They're now on a mooring campaign where they're now using the GIS now to map all the mooring locations in the BVI. And in that way, they can also tie data into that as to who owns it, how long they've owned it for, where is it located, and they could put a spatial reference on it. So if someone comes in and they say they want to put a new mooring there, the GIS, they can look at the GIS and say, oh, we have already had 10 applicants there for this one area or something like that. So therefore, we can right off make a decision as to where it can be. You have other departments, probably like fire department, in terms of responding to an emergency and trying to find a fire hydrant. They can use the GIS to find out where these fire hydrants, where the closest fire hydrants are. And if they're putting in regular information into the GIS as well, they're able to make a quick decision as to which fire hydrant is working at this time. What is the amount of gallons it can produce, or when was it last maintained, that sort of thing. So you're having that information, and it's just as any department you can think about, they can use GIS to help them in their everyday, day-to-day decision making. We can even go to water and sewage, that they can even tell you that when a water line is burst, how many customers are affected. They can then probably pick up the phone or send an email or something that customers, we have a broken line reported, and these X amount of customers will be affected. So right then you won't have too much media backlash or too much public backlash as to why we're out of water, because you can tell exactly who would be affected, and that's just because you have the use of GIS at your fingertips.
Right, great examples on how powerful this tool really is. Are there any other potential uses for GIS in the future in the BVI? If so, tell me what those are, how you see us using it.
To be honest with you, when we started using GIS, the times have changed so much since from the inception to now. We have changed so much with the software. The capabilities have changed, and our resources have changed. So now we're at a point where we're trying to get all the data out by subscriptions. So we'll have all the engineers, you'll have all the architects, we'll have all the real estate agents, all these guys that run the land registry and probably grab data. They are going to be able to have this data at their fingertips by subscription. Actually, that is our next phase. We're trying to have a phased approach where we're going to have these guys look at the data, because it's going to be like a combination of all of the land agencies plus town planning's data. You're going to have the information from survey department, which are the subdivisions, amalgamations, whatever mutations they may have. You're going to have information from land registry, all the deeds, all the transfers, all the updated ownership information. You're going to have information with your inland revenue. You would get your tax information all tied to the GIS. And of course, some town planning will have the building information, because at town planning we focus more on buildings. So all this information will be tied right there by subscription for just about anybody abroad. Because as you know, with the GIS, it's not just a local thing. You know, you may have locals that have migrated abroad. They may need to check on the status of their land, and maybe land have been transferred to somebody local. They probably went abroad, and they probably need to see what it looks like, the shape of the land, the size of the land, the terrain of the land. These type of information that you can use the GIS to actually look at and visualize.
Okay, so based on what you're saying, and this move towards having a subscription-based access to information, it's my understanding then that not anybody can just access GIS information then?
It depends on what level you're trying to. The package for subscription that we're looking at, we're going to have different levels. Okay. You might have a basic package, you might have a platinum package, a gold package, and of course the access levels to the data will be different on every level.
Currently, only persons that are part of the NGIS can access that data, is that it? currently?
No. We actually have our web mapping system. The web applications are applications based on the software. These are services based on the software. We actually have a service right now that everyone in government, once you have access to your government, once you can log on to the government's network, you have access to the data. So then you can actually log in, and for instance, you might be able to say, okay, I have a block and parcel number here. Let me just type in this URL. It's an internal connection.
Yes.
So everyone that's on the internet, you can just go into there. Once you know the URL, you can actually type in the URL and go to the website and type in your block and parcel number. It will zoom straight to that parcel and show you the size of the parcel, how it's shaped, the terrain of the parcel. Most information that you need that you will collect from land registry.
Right. Lots of great information today about GIS, and I thank you both for being a part of the program.
Thank you very much.
More information on GIS after this break. Welcome back to Focus. Before the break, we shared some information about GIS and how it is used. Let us now make the connection between GIS and the work we do in the area of disaster management. For this, we'll turn to Stacey Ann Austin, Technical Planning Officer at the DDM.
Here at the Department of Disaster Management, we use GIS in two main ways. One is the creation of HVA applications, and the second is through using GPS devices for damage assessments following a hazardous event. Let's talk first about HVA applications. The applications are usually made by clients or agents which apply on behalf of a client for an evaluation of the parcel or the site that's in question. HVAs, we have been doing this since 2009, and the main purpose of it is to identify the main hazard that a site is susceptible to, and also to produce the report. After reviewing the maps produced for the report, we usually make recommendations as to how we can mitigate against the vulnerabilities of that site. When the client makes an application for HVA, the first step we employ is to identify the site using the National GIS system. For example, this parcel has a gut running through the northwestern section of the parcel. So the first step is that the application comes in. We use the NGIS system to identify the parcel. The second step is that we visit the site. So we organize a site visit with the client or agent to visit the site. And the third step is that we use the GIS application to use the data that we have to provide maps to capture the information about the site as it relates to hazards. So let's take a look at the ArcGIS application. After identifying the site, we go over to the ArcMap application. So ArcMap is one product of the ArcGIS suite of products. It includes ArcMap, it includes ArcCatalog, which is used for GPS devices, and it includes others like ArcScene and ArcPad. Today we'll focus on the use of ArcMap and ArcPad. This is the drawing that the architect would have done in AutoCAD. Architect or draftsman would have done in AutoCAD. As you can see from the application, this is a blank site. There's no construction on the site. It's just purely vegetation, and as mentioned, a gut running through the tip of it. This is now the drawing that the architect would have done for the site. He highlights 6 lots which are poised for development. Lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, you see where the gut is running through the parcel. This is where the analysis begins. So the drawing provided by the draftsman overlays nicely with the information or the data sets we have in ArcGIS. And we're able from there on now to make some decisions. For example, a gut running through it, there is some planning stipulation that says there's no development can take place within 30 feet of a gut. So we may be able to provide a buffer area showing the architect or the draftsman where on the parcel they would not be able to develop. So this is one application. Let's look at another. So this is a second site, and as you see, its proximity to the coastline is very, very near in comparison to the first site. So there are several information that our system can show. So firstly, we're seeing coastal sensitivity data along the coast. There's some soft coral, there's some sand, etc., etc. The analysis for this site would be specific to the hazards identified on this parcel. So like the first site, we identify that there's a gut running through the parcel. And of course, the first rule is that there's no development within 30 feet of a gut. So we have a tool in ArcGIS called Buffer, which allows us really to create a buffer. So we've previously created one for this site, and so it gives the developer off the bat where on the parcel they wouldn't be able to develop on. We can also look, for example, at how vulnerable this site is to a landslide. So on here we show that green, the areas shaded green are areas with very low land slippage, or well, possibilities for very low land slippage, and also areas shaded in bright orange, highly susceptible to landslides. So the software really has many different data that we employ to each site. The uniqueness of the application depends on where the site is located. So if the site were immediately along the coast, there's some additional data that we'd want to explore, like tsunami or storm surge data. If contour data, for example, shows that the land is, for example, 192 meters above ground, it means that it is very, very high, and as such, very unlikely for it to be susceptible to tsunami. The software allows us to turn on or off several layers. Now we can look at slope information for this parcel. And again, there's a range. What areas of the land is flat, what areas are moderate, what areas are very, very high or steep slope. Depending on, again, the nature of the parcel, it will inform us as to which data sets we need to explore to extrapolate the information that is necessary. So the HVA feeds directly into the planning authority process for approval or deferral of subdivision or just development applications in general. We just spoke of our HVA application and how we go about the process of completing an application. Now let's speak about ArcMap. ArcMap is a mobile version or the mobile extension to ArcGIS. As mentioned earlier, ArcGIS has a suite of products which includes ArcMap, ArcCatalog, ArcScene, ArcPad, amongst others. ArcPad is a mobile version. This device is a GPS device, GPS meaning Global Positioning System. This is the Juno 3B and the make is Trimble. Now, the device allows us to connect with satellites which are orbiting the world or the Earth. After a major hazardous event, for example, let's talk about a hurricane. the DDM goes out along with other key government stakeholders to do a damage assessment. The severity of the damage caused to structures, caused to land is validated. So it could be a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 damage, depending on what happened to the parcel or the building in question. The GPS device allows us, via connecting with satellites, to map the damage. So for example, data can be collected in three main formats, really. Point, meaning you can select a point on a piece of land. You can say that the road broke here, or it could be line to, for example, delineate the extent of land slippage, or it could be polygon to showing the area that was damaged by the event. So that's our second way in which we use GIS. The information captured on a GPS device usually has a connection that runs from the device to the computer, which uploads onto ArcMap. So really, as mentioned, ArcPad is just a mobile version of ArcMap. So we're able now to pull the information from the GPS device so that we can have greater analysis using ArcMap. And so really, the use of GIS is about capturing geographical data to really make very, very informed, very, very intelligent decisions rather. It's more than just, mapping of a landslide or a slope, but it's really allowing us to see how vulnerable we are to different hazards, to see how much we are being affected by climate change. It's really intelligence geography, really. And so at the DDM, we embrace the use of GIS and GPS technology.
Based on that presentation by DDM's Technical Planning Officer, Stacey Ann Austin, we could all understand the importance of GIS in disaster management and risk reduction. My final thoughts after this break. Welcome back to the program. I really hope this edition has given you a new perspective on geography and its application to a field dedicated to saving lives. It's also important to remember that GIS produces detailed maps based on geographic information, and it is a vital computer-based tool used to inform disaster managers, planners, policymakers, and others about the risks persons are exposed to and the measures they can implement to reduce their risk. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Focus. I am Fiona Alexander-Smith, Information and Education Manager at the DDM. Join me next time for another edition on CBN Television and on 90.9 FM.